Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Hello.
It is a very somber Christmas evening for us here and for most of Steelers Nation. The Steelers not only do not play very well on Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals, they not only lose to the Bengals, but they look absolutely awful in the process, dropping a third straight game by a score of 27-17. The Steelers were very much in the giving spirit this Christmas week, Austin, handing the Bengals 3 turnovers and attempted to hand them several more turnovers in the process. One of the worst overall games I can remember the Steelers playing in a very long time. One of the worst, quote-unquote, Mike Tomlin losses I can ever remember.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that offense looked like it was playing against a Super Bowl caliber team in the first half. It was really, really bad. The defense, I wouldn't say was terrible in the first half. I thought the defense actually did okay. But just awful, everything from the offense.
Yeah, and the defense in the second half didn't play all that well. I know that they were not given ideal situations to work with, but they also yielded 27 points to a Ryan Finley-led offense. And all in all, just a horrible game. Things haven't gotten better for Pittsburgh. Week by week, they seem to be getting worse. And there's less and less comfort in faith in the team. There's decreasing amounts of faith with the team, being able to fix things, get things figured out. Instead of getting things repaired, getting things going, things have only gotten worse. So, things got so bad this week. We're now talking about the potential long-term future of this franchise with a lot of different things coming up, whether it comes to player contracts or the possibility of coaches being let go, the general manager retiring, the future of Ben Roethlisberger. There's a lot on the line for the last 2 games here, but in terms of your perspective, this game, where does it rank on your all-time losses in recent Steelers memory, and if it's not the top of the list, what games might it be behind?
It's still 2. It's between there's 2 games that come to mind, right? And they both came in the same season. There was that Oakland game where the Steelers made it all the way downfield for Chris Boswell to slip, and the LA Chargers game.
Back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, it's really tough because those were. I get frustrated thinking about that. The Raiders game wasn't that bad in terms of compared to this one. The problem is I was just so mad that I rank it so high. But yeah, no, I think that the Chargers game is still the one I'm most mad about. They blew a huge lead in that game, and I know part of that was to the refs, but it was just like that. That was terrible. This one was just terrible from the start. They didn't collapse on themselves. They didn't have a historically bad, like they were up so high and then they lost it. No, they were just bad from the beginning, which was frustrating for how good of a team they are. But that Chargers loss, it sticks with me. Like, I hate that Chargers loss so much. But this is definitely number 2.
I don't know that I have a definitive number 1, but I have a top tier. That Chargers game, this game, and I think the loss to the Baltimore Ravens in Week 16 of the 2015 season is up there too. I know it ultimately didn't affect the Steelers' playoff standing, but if the Bills had not beaten the Jets in Week 17, I think that would be the worst loss, simply because of the fact that the Ravens were a team that had no business being in it, and Ryan Mallett started, and the Steelers team had just put up like 30 points in like 3 straight weeks, and they were on fire, and then they just laid an egg. But for the Steelers to not only lose to a team that they were favored by double digits over, but to lose by double digits, I mean, I just can't remember a situation like that. And I guess why don't we get started with injuries. There was a scary injury on the first punt of the game with Derek Watt. I didn't see it happen live, but I saw there was a crowd around an injured player, and it honestly reminded me a lot of what I saw with the Ryan Shazier injury 3 years ago. Obviously, we were lucky that it wasn't nearly as serious. It looks like just a concussion.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it looked scary. J.J. Watt was fearing the worst when it happened. Like, he was scared for his brother. He was tweeting on Twitter during the game. And but he is okay. He actually already cleared concussion protocol, so he's more than okay. It just looked scary at the time.
And then the second injury was to Marcus Allen, the inside linebacker, had a stinger. You could tell he was in a lot of pain. He flirted with coming back in and stayed back in for a couple plays, but you could tell he was bothered. And Eric Ebron suffered a back injury on a quote-unquote hospital ball from Ben Roethlisberger early in the game and did not return, but he is expected to play this week. So that's about it from the injury standpoint, aside from other bumps and bruises. Let's get into this game. I think there's a lot more to say about the offense, so why don't we start talking about the defense? Why don't you take it wherever you want to start?
Sure. So, honestly, in the first half, I thought the defense played all right. I mean, they gave up 17 points to the Ryan Finley-led Bengals, but all in all, a lot of it really wasn't their fault. I mean, they were put into really tough situations. I mean, look at how the game went, right? So it starts where Cincinnati, it's 0-0 on the Pittsburgh's third possession of the game. They fumble immediately. There's a problem with the snap. David DeCastro kicks it while he's pulling, and it's recovered by, I believe, Josh Bynes. They get to start at the Pittsburgh 20. The defense did its job. They start on the 20, get a field goal. That's 3 free points gifted from the offense. Now the next drive, what do you think happens again? This is where Juju Smith-Schuster gets lit up. Juju Smith-Schuster gets lit up at I believe the Pittsburgh 48, but it gets recovered at the Pittsburgh 38. Defense can't hold this time, but it's still a short field. It's 38 yards to go. But now Cincinnati's up 10-0. It's just like, well, what can you really do here? I mean, then you go to the third, the next possession for this Pittsburgh offense. I know we're supposed to be talking about defense, so I'm just trying to get to the point. They throw an interception, points off of turnovers. The interception didn't come really on the Pittsburgh side. I mean, what really made it tough was, again, the offense messing with them. Chukwuma Okorafor drew an unnecessary roughness penalty, which took the interception 15 yards up, and Cincinnati got to start at the Pittsburgh 26, as it originally wasn't that deep in Steelers territory, but because of that penalty and the return yards, it was, and then they give up another touchdown. You wish that doesn't happen, but they were given 3 short fields, and those were the times that they scored in this game. They almost scored on after their first field goal on a drive down the field, but they missed a field goal. In the first half, the only reason they scored was off of turnovers, because they had an extremely short field. Every single time, their field was less than 40 yards. So, I mean, all in all, I thought the defense did pretty well. They forced, I believe, 2 straight punts to start the game, 3 and outs, no less. Then, obviously, they get the field goal, but I felt like the defense fell apart in the second half. I thought it was a story that has for both the offense and the defense. I feel like that always happens. When one unit strongly underperforms, the next half it's going to perform way better while the other half just suffers.
I still think you're allowed to criticize the defense, even if there are 2 short drives that they gave up touchdowns. This is Ryan Finley playing quarterback, not a good NFL quarterback. Finley didn't have impressive numbers. He was only 7 of 13. I mean, he only dropped back 15 times, and he had a passer rating of 101. So, I mean, his biggest asset on the day was his legs. In fact, the running game itself was relatively effective. I'd like to see what the overall run success rate was for the Bengals in this one. It just feels like the Steelers didn't do a great job of stopping the run in this game, at least not when they needed to. And the first play of that second Bengals touchdown drive was a 14-yard run from the 26-yard line. You just can't do that. You just can't give that up. So, I mean, you look at what the Steelers' defense yielded. There were 2 field goals where they gave up a total of 13 yards between the 2 drives, and they got 6 points against. So I'd be willing to knock that off their total. But they did allow 3 touchdown drives, and if you can hold one of those to a field goal, you're talking 17 points on the day instead, because you get 2 touchdown, excluding the 2 gimme field goals. And if you can stop one of those drives and force a field goal, it's 17 points in total. The backbreaker for this defense, like you said, it came in the second half. The Steelers' offense had finally gotten things turned around. They had scored 10 straight points on back-to-back drives, then went 3 and out. And as soon as that happened, the Bengals' offense woke up and went on a 9-play, 80-yard drive that resulted in a touchdown that essentially put the game out of reach. In a situation where you have all the momentum, that's something that you just can't have happen on that play. The Bengals ran on 8 of the 9 plays on that drive, including the last 7 plays. That's just inexcusable, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, literally the only silver lining you could say, not even silver lining, it's just the only excuse you could make is that at the beginning of that drive, that's when Marcus Allen got hurt, which is going to make it easier to run down the middle when he was trying to play hero ball because he was playing injured. Like, you don't want that to happen. A lot of that was moved because of penalty, too. I mean, it's just Watt got a neutral zone infraction on that drive, so you just don't want to see that, regardless of the injuries. You want a guy to step up, and it's not Giovanni Bernard. When we were previewing this episode, we were talking about Bernard as not a starter. He's a good complementary third down back, a really good receiver, but he's looked really good running in this game. The Steelers made him look really good, and that's terrible for a team that's supposed to be really good at run. It was really disappointing.
I would like to point out that according to the PFF grades, the left side of the defense, so the TJ Watt, Joe Hayden, Stephon Tuitt side, graded far worse in run defense than the right side. So like Stephon Tuitt, TJ Watt, Joe Hayden, Marcus Allen too. I know he's in the middle, but that side of the defense did not grade well in run defense, as opposed to the right side of Cameron Hayward, Avery Williamson, Tyson Alualu. They all graded, or Chris Wormley too, they all graded much better on runs to the right. So the best players on the defense, Watt and Tuitt mostly, I mean Hayward's fine too, but you really felt like they were attacking the weakness of inside linebacker with the inexperience of a guy like Marcus Allen and later Ulysses Gilbert III. And it was just a situation where you really just need more from your guys, and they were not able to step up in this game. And again, they were given a bad situation, but they weren't playing Patrick Mahomes. They were playing a Ryan Finley-led offense that ran the ball 41 out of 50, or 41 times and threw it 15 times. So not a good day from the defense. And again, the end of the game, giving up that killer touchdown, and then they weren't able to force any turnovers in this game, which I believe is the second time in the last 3 weeks the Steelers have not forced a single turnover. And this is a Bengals team that has been turning the ball over like crazy since Joe Burrow exited.
Yeah, that was very disappointing. I felt like it's kind of crazy to think. This offense on paper, the Bengals offense, I should say, shouldn't have scored more than 3 points. It just doesn't. It's when you look at their offensive line, when you look at their running back situation, when you look at their quarterback, and then the Steelers are gifted Tyler Boyd getting a concussion. Not that I hope for that, not that because I love Tyler Boyd, but now they literally lost one of their top weapons, like one of the only weapons they had in this game. They lost him for most of this game. The offense shouldn't have been able to put up more than 3 points. It's just simple as that, and it almost is crazy to look at it because like you look at the stats and you might see that like maybe they won it through the rushing game, but the passing numbers almost don't make sense for how many points they scored. Just kind of ridiculous.
This has happened a lot, though. I mean, this happened with that Bears game in 2017. Mike Glennon, I think, completed 8 passes. That Jaguars game in 2017, Bortles completed like 9 passes. There's an odd congruency between not throwing a lot of passes against this defense and winning games. And winning them handily, too, more often than not, I might add.
I don't know what's up with that, but the defense has to be the strength of our team going forward. It's really the only thing we got going because the offense doesn't look like it's waking up. The offense just looks really sad. And you could say that, well, maybe the second half is a good look moving forward, but I don't feel that way. This team should have been destroying that defense. That team is not very good. They're hurt all over their defense. They have a few good pieces, as we said, going in, like William Jackson, Jesse Bates, and Carl Lawson, which Carl Lawson decided to have a day. Alejandro Villanueva had one of the worst games I've ever seen from him in a Pittsburgh jersey. It was just awful. It was just really, really bad.
Yeah, the Bengals offense finished this game with just 13 first downs, was 4 of 14 on third down, and they only had 230 yards of offense, and yet they put up 27 points. No touchdowns from special teams or defensive touchdowns. So, they didn't give up a ton of yards, but at the end of the day, it's the scoreboard that matters. The Steelers allowed two of four in terms of red zone scores, and one of the 4 attempts was on the Bengals' last drive, which ended in a field goal, which they probably, I don't know if that's necessarily fair because they took over in the red zone. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess it does, but still not very impressive at all. And that's not even the unit that was the worst. I mean, the defense, just have to be better, but the offense is the true story right now. The defense banged up, as we know. We can talk about them, but I think the real story, as we know, is on offense.
Yeah, the offense as a whole just played really poorly. Ben Roethlisberger had one of his worst games, probably the worst game of his career. I'm pretty sure you said PFF graded it as his worst game of his career.
So, in terms of PFF grading, I went back and looked. So this only goes back to 2006. So there's 2 full seasons of Ben Roethlisberger's career that are missing. So maybe that it wouldn't necessarily be true. But from 2006 on, this was the lowest PFF grade Ben Roethlisberger has ever had in a single game, of 25.1. Dating back to 2006, I found one game. The closest was a Week 3 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in 2008. A game I remember very well as a game that one of the only times I ever thought Ben needed to be benched in a game, and that was it. And this game was worse. His Jacksonville game graded in like the 40s, so he didn't play well in that game, but obviously the people grading thought that his interceptions had somewhat to do with the receivers in that game. I really think the first half was the worst I've ever seen Ben, almost by far.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was like watching a 7th-round quarterback come in and try and play for the team without any prep. It was awful. It was really, really bad. I
tweeted this and I saw you liked it, but my thoughts on the matter were I can't believe this is actually happening because I finally understand what the whole analogy of a train wreck. It looks like a train wreck. You just can't look away. I finally understand what that's like.
No, this was falling apart. This was terrible because I texted you about this. I really wish I could blame this loss on Randy. This is one of Randy's best play calling games, and that's really sad. The Steelers offense put up 17, but Randy called a great game. There were wide receivers open everywhere. I thought that the running game was actually working, which was, maybe shouldn't be applauded against this team, but regardless, the offense, the scheme was there. The plays were there. This was literally almost solely on Ben. The execution was why this game came out the way it did. There were wide receivers open on several plays. It's just he has to hit them. He has to hit them and not get his wide receivers. It's not even like he was missing, too. He was missing and getting people killed. He was getting Juju Smith-Schuster blown up. That fumble was, you could blame Juju, but he got blown up on that play. Eric Ebron got hurt because of his throw. Just this was a really, really bad game in all facets. He was making bad reads. He was getting his players in bad situations, and he was missing the wide open guys. There's nothing else to say other than that this was a career worst game for Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, it wasn't just simply the fact that Ben was, like you said, missing guys. It's that he was passing up open players at the intermediate or deep part of the field to throw to guys who are covered in the flats or over the middle on crossers. We've been hearing about how Ben might be having issues with his knee, how his elbow might be bothering him, how the arm strength might be gone. We've been hearing that for a couple weeks now, right? But this is the first time all year where he's been making horrible reads and just making the bad decision almost every time, which makes me wonder if it's a confidence issue. I rarely think that Ben has ever suffered from confidence problems. I think this might be one of the first times in a long time where in that game he was just lacking confidence and just almost didn't know what to do.
I have no idea. It's almost like he didn't want to target the middle of the field. It felt like we were watching Mason Rudolph play last year. Cause that's what watching Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges was like, except you had no expectations with these guys. You knew that you didn't really think that they were going to be great. They didn't have a repertoire before this. So, but it was exactly like watching them play, where it's like, oh, okay, cool, we can't target anywhere in the middle of the field, 10 yards down the field. It has to be close to short, goes into the flats, and that's where we're going to throw the entire game on the outsides. And that's what watching this game was like.
So as we know, Ben only completed one pass more than 10 yards down the field. It was that touchdown down the right sideline, 23 yards, but really it traveled about 30-plus yards from his hands. It was actually a really nice throw down the right sideline. Only 3 passes attempted more than 10 yards down the field, in the middle of the field, none completed, 1 intercepted. And what's funny enough is he actually, the week before, completed his only attempt 20-plus yards down the field in the middle, and that was a touchdown pass to James Washington against Buffalo. So, I don't know. There's a lot to talk about. And like you talked about with Randy Fichtner, I was very much impressed, and even though the offense sputtered out of the gate, I was encouraged because we saw something from the Steelers' offense that we haven't seen in a long time, something that, frankly, we've been calling for a while. With Ben's mobility issues in his comfort zone, we said that the best compromise to basically do things that'll make things easier for this offense is more play action and more under center. And if under center isn't something that he wants to do, compromise and get him pistol, right? So pistol is the shotgun that's not as deep and gets the running back behind him, so it gives the runner more of an opportunity to get ahead of steam when they're running, which I think helped. I think a lot of Benny Snell's better runs on the day, save for a couple draws, came out of the pistol. Am I right?
Yeah, no, it definitely seemed that way, that there was more running out of the pistol and play action, honestly.
Yeah, and the play action, which I think is key, because I think there's a major difference between play action out of the shotgun and play action out of the pistol.
Yeah, for sure.
So that first play was a play action fake, and I've been watching it like over and over again. There wasn't a ton of room on that first play, but Ben had 2 guys, basically whoever he wanted to choose, coming off that rollout. And if he hits it in stride, it's a touchdown both ways. I mean, both receivers, Johnson and Washington, had beaten their man. You know, if he's even, he's leaving. They weren't even. They were out there. And Ben horribly underthrew the pass, and it was almost picked off. And that was just a bad sign right there. But the Steelers used a lot more play action in this game, which encouraged me. And they had some interesting personnel decisions with J.C. Hassenauer and Gerwin Gray, but the running game was a lot better with Gray in it. But there were actually some signs of life from the Steelers' running game, and yet it didn't matter in the first half because the Steelers couldn't sustain anything, and it just felt like Ben couldn't do anything. I really was, like I told you, I just couldn't believe what I was watching, and I was one drive away. In the second half, I was like, I'll give Ben one drive to start the second half, and if he can't do it, I'd bench him for Mason at that point, although he came out with his best drive of the night that time. Just a 4-play drive, including an explosive pass to Chase Claypool on the quick screen pass and then the touchdown pass to Deontay Johnson. It really felt like the tides were turning when the Steelers scored on their first 2 possessions to start the second half, and the Bengals went 3-and-out both times.
Yeah, it's when the defense took a turn. The defense stopped holding on after that, and then the offense crumbled again. I mean, what can you do, really? Yeah,
3 out of the first 4 drives in the second half, the Steelers' offense went for points. Whether it was 2 touchdowns and a field goal, so they got 17 points. But the problem was they had a 3-and-out. And then on that final drive, I really felt like the Steelers just abandoned what they were doing and just started chucking it again for no reason at all.
Yeah. I mean, you look at there was 2 minutes 16 seconds left when they turned it over on downs on that drive, and they threw it 4 straight times. Obviously, you have to throw it on the 3rd and 4th time, really. You know what's actually funny? Since you know you're going for it on 4th down, you probably could have ran it on 3rd and 10. Try and make it a little bit more manageable. So I'll say that, but they didn't run it at all. They didn't try.
That's one of the few instances where I'm okay with running it on like third down like that. If you know you're going to go for it, try a higher percentage play like that. Even if it's not going to likely get you even half the yardage you need, there's a big difference between a 3rd and 10 and a 3rd and 6. Or sorry, 4th and 6, I mean.
Yeah, it makes me want to throw up, but like we saw it work in this game too. On a 2nd and 15, Randy Fichtner called a draw and it worked. It was successful. It got, I think, 13 yards, either 13 or 12. So, I mean, they could have tried it if they wanted to. Not that I'm opposed to throwing there. I think that throwing in 3rd and 10 is a higher percentage to get it, but I wouldn't have been mad at running it there either. They didn't try on the first 2, so no.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot to like at all. This is just a stink sandwich in this game, and I don't know. I mean, we could probably talk for hours about this, but I mean, I guess is the conversation now, where do you want to go from here? Because there was almost nothing to take away from this, except for also the fumbles by Ben, the exchange snap there, which that was horrible. That's something that can't happen with a guy. It shouldn't happen ever, but especially not between a quarterback and center that have been playing together for 10 years.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was really, really bad. I mean, overall, just the turnovers in this game were all really bad. I mean, you look at Juju Smith-Schuster getting blown up. You look at that poor exchange. Oh, the pick. Just all so bad. Yeah.
I would like to
going forward.
I was going to say real quick,
sorry.
I would like to point out real quickly that the short yardage running game was also bad. That was one thing about the ground game that still was not good at all.
Oh, yeah, that 4th and 1 early on in the game after not being able to run it on 3rd and 1, that was tough. That was tough. And I was about to head into it, and I could transition with that, is that the offensive line needs to play better. For who they are, they need to play better. And I understand that you had Derwin Gray and Chasey Osnauer. That is the one thing, a mistake. I think that, I don't know who got to make that call, if it was Tomlin or Fichtner. I think that Osnauer starting at guard was a mistake. I have no idea why they did that. I was almost positive it was going to be Derwin Gray from the start, and I think that Derwin Gray, at the end of the day, was the better option. So that contributes to it. But that's not the problem. I don't expect that the guy who's starting there to do well. He's a backup. You always hope for next man up, but the expectations are kind of low. What I was really disappointed was Big Al. Big Al had a terrible game, all in all. Like, he was getting destroyed by Carl Lawson, and not only on top of that, he just made one block. Ray McLeod had one catch all evening, and it was for -2 yards. That one -2 yard catch was because of Big Al couldn't make one block. Ray McLeod, with his speed, you don't know what happens. I think that it would have been 6. It was definitely going to gain 20 yards. I'll say without a doubt it would have gained the first down. Secondly, 90% chance that goes for 25 yards. And then there's like a 50% chance that it goes for a touchdown. If Big Al just makes the block on the outside and he missed, he completely whiffs, and Ray McLeod gets knocked back into the backfield. And it was so disappointing. He had a really bad day between that and getting destroyed by Carl Lawson on almost every play. So, I mean, if there's one thing you could say for Ben being so bad in this game, his offensive line did not help him in this game. There's boneheaded plays everywhere, and like I mentioned earlier, Chukwuma Okorafor got a personal foul on him that brought Cincinnati deep into Pittsburgh's territory on offense, just to put the defense in a worse situation. Like, the whole offensive line just did not play well in this game.
Yeah, this was, in terms of PFF grading, this is the worst game Alejandro Villanueva's ever played. So,
I believe it. Just felt like he was getting smacked and pushed back every play.
He also was getting help with chips, too, I should point out. It's not like they left him on an island all game, although most of the time he was. He wasn't the entire game. Also, do you think it's any coincidence that the running game improved with a lot more snaps from Vance McDonald as opposed to Eric Ebron in this game? Because I obviously would think that it does.
I think so. I'm pretty sure that there is a correlation. I mean, you could say maybe it's a worse team, but I've been saying it for a little while now that Eric Ebron just really isn't good at run blocking. He is way more detrimental than he is helpful in that respect, because the amount, it's not even how he does it, it's that he's gotten penalties. He's got a few holding penalties this year on run blocking snaps. So it's like he's detrimental to be out there on run blocking plays because he's not going to do well, and then you risk just getting a penalty and moving back, and then you're forced to throw anyway, basically. So I think that Vance in there is a good thing. Not that I don't like Eric Ebron. I think that he has his role as a very solid pass-catching tight end that's going to be good down the seam, good middle-of-the-field target. But I think Vance McDonald is better for the running downs, the blocking downs, stuff like that. And then I still think he provides a pass-catching threat, even though he hasn't really been active in the offense on that side of the ball.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how just 2 years ago he caught 50 passes, and I mean, I can't remember him catching. I don't think he hasn't caught a touchdown this year. I don't remember him contributing much at all.
He wasn't targeted in this game, and Ebron went down fairly early, I felt like. So, I mean, he just really isn't part of the pass-catching offense this year.
He has, this season, a total of 9 catches for 61 yards.
That's pretty wild.
In 10 games the year the Steelers acquired him. Remember, they acquired him just at the start of the season. He had injury problems. He was getting acclimated to the offense. He caught 14 passes that year and a touchdown. And this year he doesn't have a single touchdown. This has been a very quiet year in terms of pass receiving. He caught 50 and then 38 the last 2 years. So this has been a very quiet season for the 30-year-old tight end. I don't want to see any more 2 tight end sets. McDonald, by the way, graded as the highest graded run blocker on the day. So, there were a couple plays I thought he did a nice job. Chukwuma Okorafor whiffed on a 3rd and short that caused McDonald to have to take him and leave a free runner at Benny Snell, where if Okorafor handled his block, McDonald pulls and probably clears a hole for Snell to get the first down, but alas, he did not. And, I guess just keep rotating those guys in. You have to, if you're going to get Ebron on the field, just spread it out, and if you have to run, try not to run towards him. And you still have to throw the ball with McDonald. You can't be too one-dimensional with these guys.
Yeah. Not to go too off topic, but it feels so long ago. I wonder how different things would have been if Banner never got hurt. It feels like Chukwuma Okorafor was the starter from the get-go because of how quickly that happened.
But he wasn't, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He wasn't. We technically have a backup playing right tackle. I wonder how different Banner would have been compared to Okorafor. We don't really even know. It's just something I think about. Because I know Chukwuma Okorafor has been kind of struggling in the run blocking department.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about that then? Where are you with this offensive line right now? Like each individual player. I mean, whoever you want to talk about first, I guess.
I think that Tyler is an easy gone. I've been saying that for a few weeks now. I think that Dotson is fine to take over in that spot. I believe that I don't really trust Chukwuma Okorafor. I don't really know what you do, but either Okorafor or Banner could be moving to left tackle next season, assuming you retain Banner because of his injury. I think he can. I don't think he's going to get paid elsewhere. I don't know if he wants to be elsewhere. Banner seems to like Pittsburgh a lot, but I don't know. Obviously, we don't personally know the players. But he puts on persona that he really likes Pittsburgh. So I'm going to assume Banner's back. And I think that either him or Chukwuma Okorafor is going to take over for Big Al, because I don't think Big Al stays either. Because Big Al's before this, this is one game. I don't know if it's a keep that way. Big Al was playing a really good season before this game. He hadn't allowed a sack this game. That changed, but he's probably going to get paid to end his career somewhere. I'm not sure. He could even retire. That's up to him. But I think he's gone. Marquise Pouncey is just going to stay there. He needs to get his surgery, though. I think Marquise Pouncey getting his surgery will help him become more mobile again. He needs to fix his knee in the offseason. I hope he does that. David DeCastro,
I think he's hurt. I think he's hurt. I think that, because remember, he missed time at the start of the year. Stefan Wisniewski was an opening day starter.
Yeah.
I think that DeCastro hasn't fully gotten healed. And I think that's why we're seeing the play we've seen from him this year. I don't know.
That's exactly what I'm thinking,
yeah.
too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was worthy of a Pro Bowl nod this year.
No.
I think he's been okay. Like, he's not been great. He's not been overly terrible. Just been kind of average there, like an okay offensive lineman. And I tend to agree with you. I think that something's wrong because up until this year, he's always played. He's been one of the best guards in the league, and he's just not playing at that level this year. So hopefully, with an offseason, he can recover, and you see your starting offensive line either. I'm going to assume Chukwuma. I think Chukwuma Okorafor, with his athletics, is better suited for left tackle, but I don't know.
I would agree with you.
I think that he'll be left tackle. Left guard is going to be Kevin Dotson. Center is going to be Marquise Pouncey. Right guard, we're still seeing David DeCastro. And then right tackle, I think Banner's back. And then you're going to have a rookie somewhere. I wouldn't be opposed to rookies multiple places as backups. Because you kind of need some offensive lineman depth, as we saw with this year. The Steelers got basically nuked there.
You're either going to see, I imagine they take some tackle or maybe an interior guy. I don't think they're going to go with Gray or Hawkins as the first guy off the bench there. And I love J.C. Hassenauer, but I'm pretty sure he's just going to be a guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to a reunion of either
DJ
Hubbard
Finney.
or Finney.
Yeah.
I think
Let me check their
both are
contracts.
potential cuts for their teams. But yeah.
All right, I'm checking their contract status. Yeah, I would imagine, here's the interesting thing about Villanueva. I have a feeling he's very similar, in a similar situation to that of Ramon Foster from last year, where I feel like if he doesn't play for Pittsburgh, he's going to retire.
Yeah, that's fair. That's why I mentioned. I feel like he could retire stuff. But he could also get one last payday. I think somewhere. I think he get one. I don't think he's gonna get top tackle money, but I think he could get a bigger contract than he could in Pittsburgh. So I think he could take like 1 year, and they're like, all right, I'm done. I got my one last year of money. He'll go somewhere else. He could compete for money. Not sure.
So with B.J. Finney. After this season, he still has 1 year left on his deal, but at age 29, the Bengals could cut him with no dead cap. So that's a possibility. Yeah. Chris Hubbard...
But the Bengals need offensive linemen so bad that he might not be cut.
Well, I guess if you're the Steelers, and if you really want B.J. Finney that badly, you hope the Bengals take an interior offensive lineman or two.
Yeah.
And then
Hubbard, I think, is way more likely because Hubbard's contract is easily cuttable to save money, and the Browns have an offensive line built without him.
The dead cap the Browns would take on by cutting him at the end of this season, so this offseason, would be just $2.26 million. So it's definitely something the Browns could withstand by doing so.
Yeah. I think Hubbard's more likely to get cut than Finney based on the team he's on, based on the amount of money he is. He's not a starter anymore because they found different starters, but and he just suffered an injury too. I don't know if he'll be ready for next season. That might affect things, but he just suffered an injury for the Browns. I think that he can be cut, and I could see a return for the minimum to the Steelers.
I think bottom line, though, I think it's time to start rebuilding this offensive line. This is a group that for years has been founded on some early draft picks and a lot of low drafted, undrafted free agent type players. So Pouncey and DeCastro manning it. And then you've got a rotation of guys like Marcus Gilbert, Kelvin Beachum, Alejandro Villanueva, Ramon Foster. So you've got some highly drafted guys, a couple fixtures, and then mostly, diamonds in the rough you found with the Mike Munchak era. And now that that's aging out, I think it's time that you start looking into replenishing and investing highly. I know we were texting a little bit about this during the game and afterwards. I think that the offensive line is one of my top 2 or 3 concerns going into this draft, even though we're not at that point yet, obviously.
A question you just reminded me of. Do you think that losing Munchak and switching to Sarrett had a bigger effect than was anticipated, or do you think that plays a role to how the offensive line has been playing, or no?
Not really, because this is mostly the same group of guys from before. They're just aging out, injured, or just not playing as well.
Yeah, that's fair. That's kind of what I was thinking too. I saw someone else pose that question though.
I'm not going to say it's.
You reminded me of it.
I'm not going to say it's having no impact, but it's not like these guys forgot how to do what they do.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, run blocking is really not that complicated. I mean, even scheme-based, you pretty much know what you're doing on running plays. It's just a matter of doing it. And in pass protection's a little different, but I still don't feel like picking up blitzes has been an issue for this team for the most part. I feel like they've done a pretty good job most of the last few years.
Picking up blitzes, I feel like has been a struggle the past couple of weeks, but yeah, overall in a year span, they've done all right. Yeah.
The Bills game was an issue, but it was also an issue last year too.
See, I was actually thinking of the Ravens game. The Ravens game, I felt like there was like 4 free rushers that got to Ben, just even though there was no sacks given up, but he was smacked.
The Ravens are one of the few teams that have some of the most creative blitzes in the NFL, though. But I think bottom line, what I'm trying to get at is I still think that the offensive line is a group that it's time to start rebuilding, and obviously tight end is another, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But I mean, I think it's time that you start looking into some changes with this offensive line pretty soon here.
Yeah, probably after this season, you definitely have to start.
And now the biggest question is quarterback. We've talked a bit about it already, but a lot of talk about Ben's arm, Ben's knee. Is he done? Because, anytime a quarterback over the age of 35 has more than one bad game in a row, the question is, are they done?
Yeah. I don't know how. I'll let the season play out. Like, if we lose out, I'm 100% going to be an advocate of getting a quarterback if there's a quarterback there. Because I'm going to assume we lost out because Ben really struggled. And that means I'm likely going to see us not going to win a playoff game. And I'm going to be like, well, this team is not winning anything with the quarterback we have. So we might as well let Ben play one more year. If there's a quarterback that falls to you in the draft, you take him. If not, you move on to the next year and hope that there's one you like better next year, which I literally would have no clue. I don't watch college. I know the top quarterbacks this year, like Trask, Mac Jones, and obviously Lawrence. Lawrence is out of the question for the Steelers, but
you know what I want.
Guys like that. What you want Trevor Lawrence?
No.
You want Slovis.
Yeah,
you want Slovis next year, right?
I want a quarterback next year.
I know Slovis.
Yeah, not next
USC.
year, but I want one in 2022.
Okay, I know a quarterback in 2022, but I still don't know a quarterback in 2021. But
I just know that wherever the Steelers are going to be picking, which we said could be as high as like 20 or something? 18?
18 is the highest because of the 14-man playoffs now.
That would require the Steelers being the last team in, which I don't think is going to happen, though.
I have to.
I don't know.
Some stuff
regardless, usually the way the last few years have gone, the top 3 to 4 quarterbacks are gone by pick 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Let's not get directly into that now. Let's talk more about Ben at the moment. I'm not sure that he's done, but I'm also not sure that he's not done. not done, Like, I think it certainly is a possibility. We've talked a lot about Tom, everyone's talked a lot about Tom Brady, and he's 43. But this old guard of quarterbacks, Brady playing till 43 doesn't mean that every quarterback is going to play till then now. I mean, let's look at the old quarterbacks in the league over the last few years. Guys like Eli and Peyton Manning, when they were done pretty quickly, right? I mean, those guys were done at ages, 39, 36, something like that, 37. Drew Brees has had a noodle arm for the last 3 years, but he's been the most accurate quarterback in league history, so he's gotten away with it. Brady hasn't looked good the last few years. I mean, he's looking better this year, but he has probably the most talented offense to work with this year. Phillip Rivers, he's looked better in recent weeks, but most of this year, I wouldn't say Phillip Rivers has been anything other than ordinary. And then you have Ben, who has looked good at times this year, but also the last few weeks hasn't. I don't know that he's not done, but maybe he is too. It's just a simple fact of the matter that maybe quarterbacks generally don't play past 40 anymore still.
All we know is that we don't know. That's basically where we're at. That's why we got to see where the season finishes. Maybe next week, Ben comes in and throws 6 touchdowns against the Colts. Do I think that's likely? No. Have we seen it before? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we have. But what's it called? It's just going to be up to it. On paper, that next game looks tough. Really does. It's going to be a struggle for the offense, but it's up to them to show some life. I really hope that the AFC North title does not ride on that Week 17 game against Cleveland. I'm hoping the Steelers can control their own destiny. They just need to win this game. They need to win this game because the Browns, I mean, anything can happen. The Rams lost to the Jets, but the Browns are not likely to lose to the Jets. I want the Steelers to take control of their own destiny, finish with the AFC North title, and like fresh starters because the first and second seed are likely out of the question after that. With the game break over the Colts and Titans, you don't have to worry about that 4th seed.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess time will tell. And, you know, he's just got... I am worried that it's a confidence thing with him, but, you know, I guess the thing you got to tell him is... I don't know if he's saving himself for the playoffs, but it's do or die time now. The playoffs might as well start now because there's nothing that this offense is doing well enough. And I often think that nothing is as bad as it always seems and nothing is as good as it always seems when it's going well. But they've got to try to do something quickly. This was supposed to be the game they turned it around, and it's hard to believe that they will now. This is more or less their last opportunity to do so, even with 2 games going forward. This is a team that looks like it's collapsing for the 3rd straight season, and that's a horrible reflection on Mike Tomlin, whose teams typically play well in December. The last 3 years, including 2 games into this year, he's 5-9 in December. That's just not good enough. That gets most coaches fired over a 3-year span.
If you don't win Week 16, Week 17 is basically a playoff game. You're fighting for your right to have some home field advantage in the playoffs, at least to a bit. If you don't win, if you literally lose out, which it's a possibility at this point, because the Colts and Browns aren't pushovers anymore. You might be seeing Pittsburgh going into Cleveland the next week, literally, because of the seeding. Because I'm assuming Buffalo would be the 2nd seed, Browns would be 3rd seed, and then either Titans or Colts would be the 4th seed.
Yeah, so it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. But in terms of this game, 10 years from now, we could be looking at this game as what really looked like the beginning of the end for Ben, as bad as that, or it could be the low point in a season that ended very well. I mean, who knows? Time will tell. But I think that's about all I have to add with this one. Just hard. Yeah. It was hard to watch. It really was.
Yeah, we got outside the game territory because sad.
All right. Let's see here. You want to talk about what happened last week in the NFL?
Sure, we can talk about what happened last week in the NFL.
Was this the best week we've ever had picking games? If it's not, it was close.
I think together, yeah, we did pretty good, and we got to all 3 of the first 3 games.
Yeah, we got both of the Saturday games right and the Thursday night game right. And we talked about all those. So in terms of Sunday, man, the Falcons just it's like they're on that repeat spin cycle. The same thing over and over again. I don't know what you even do. It's almost like you just expect it to happen. They were up 17-0 and lost 31-27.
If I'm the Falcons, I'm going for Brady's knees the next time
I
play him.
Whoa!
I literally don't. If I'm the the Falcons are scared of Tom Brady. The Falcons cannot handle this man. So they take a lead that is ridiculous, and Tom Brady says, "All right, I'm coming back," and that's it. They now have the meme Super Bowl, and then this game, the Falcons blew a 17-point lead. I think it was like 17-3 at one point, too.
It was 17-0.
Literally. So, if I'm the Falcons, I never want to see Tom Brady again.
I think they're afraid of a lead. more than Tom.
That too. I mean, it's not just Tom Brady. They've blown leads to several teams, so.
Let's see. Dallas and San Francisco. I had a feeling Dallas was going to win this one. They just destroyed the Bengals. The Niners are a team ready to pack things in. The Cowboys, man, that offense looks so much better with Tony Pollard at running back than Ezekiel Elliott. That's just the truth.
Ow. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that running backs are fungible? Crazy. Wild.
What do we say, Austin? Don't pay running backs.
No. Give them... I want James Conner to be the first $20 million running back. Let's go for it. Let's do it. That's some records.
I love James. I think he's going to have a hard time getting more than 2.
No. We're going to give him 20.
Oh, man. Man,
don't pay running backs.
The Niners are... They've just had... It feels like 2018 is repeated for them in 2020 with Raheem Mostert now out for the year. Nick Mullins was out. Now C.J. Beathard is in. They signed Josh Rosen off the Buccaneers practice squad. Rosen's career continues to be a pinball machine.
Yeah, it's interesting with them. I think there's something wrong with their management. I remember reading a tweet earlier on in the year where Chase Claypool was texting like a 49ers friend about rest or something, and the 49ers guy, he was unnamed, unidentified, was like, yo, like, then they don't ever give us off. And, like, I was at that point at first, I was like, I wonder if that's, like, the reason why 49ers get hurt more than, like, any other team. And it's like, because this has been going on for a couple of years now. I feel like the 49ers usually have a lot of injuries. I feel like the Chargers usually have quite a few. But I wonder if there's a problem with the strength and conditioning in the 49ers because of how often they get injuries. And that text makes me worry for them more than I should for any NFC team.
The Derrick Henry MVP sweepstakes continue to get hotter. He rolls for $147 and another touchdown. The Titans roll over the Lions, 46-25. Not much to say about that, other than that game went about as well as we thought it was going to go for Tennessee.
Tennessee just rolled over them. Isn't even hard.
Whoops. Oh, excuse me. Nearly an exact duplicate of the score we saw from the Colts and Texans 2 weeks ago, just off by 1 point. The Colts hang on for the 27-20 victory. Not a great season for Deshaun Watson's Texans, although he himself has been playing pretty well this year. The Colts, a team that the Steelers will see this week, just the better overall team.
It's easy peasy. I mean, it's tough for the Texans. Texans could be more competitive if they have Bradley Rolle, Fuller still, but losing those two to the suspensions was tough.
Patriots at Dolphins had the making early on for a game where the master would defeat the apprentice again, but the key component of that is that the Patriots cannot throw the ball, and they did not again. The Dolphins victorious, eliminating the Patriots from playoff contention. It'll be the first time they've missed the playoffs since 2008. That team, the only 11-win team to not make the playoffs in NFL history. This team will not reach 11 wins, and they're one loss away from finishing with the losing record. I feel pretty darn close to my win predictions for Tampa Bay and New England. I predicted New England was a 7-win team, and I thought Tampa Bay was a 9-win team, and I'm relatively close to that, although I think the Buccaneers have a good chance of finishing with 11.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. The Patriots are in a tough spot. The Patriots kind of need a quarterback. I don't trust Cam Newton. I didn't trust Cam Newton when they signed him. It was for a really solid deal, but, I mean, he hasn't shown up, and they have a lot of other problems other than that. They don't have weapons. You could blame the weapons not so good with them. I mean, they didn't have Edelman, and they don't have Gronk in New England anymore, so, I mean, it's tough when you have to work with N'Keal Harry, who I dislike, Jacoby Myers, guys like that. Then you have a whole running back rotation. So I know you like Damien Harris, but I'm not particularly in love with any of the running backs they got there. Just receiving back, but like nothing more than that.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot there. Harris didn't play this week either, so not that he would have made a huge difference anyways. Bears at Vikings. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings lost. They actually just lost today. We'll get to that game later on, but the Vikings fell to 6-8 at the time. and had their playoff hopes on life support. Finally, a big game for David Montgomery, but the Bears are a team just, they're just playing out the string, but played well in this one.
Yeah, I mean, now the Bears have a shot at the playoffs, so.
Imagine losing to the Washington football team. Sadly, for us, the Seahawks did not fall to a similar fate. Got out to an early 20-3 lead, but the Washington football team's 12-point explosion in the fourth quarter was not enough. Dwayne Haskins, 38 completions for less than 300 yards. He had a bad week. He was seen at a strip club this week without a mask on, and subject to discipline from the football team. So, Austin, what do you think about that strip club incident with Dwayne Haskins?
That is beyond. I believe that he was given a chance at life again. I mean, he was given a chance to take over the reins for the Washington football team, and he immediately came out and did something detrimental to the looks of the team by going to a strip club, not wearing a mask. All of that is just all not good. I mean, I thought it was funny as heck, but, I mean, not good for his team.
He got benched earlier this year, remember, because of the fact that he was apparently, according to the coaches, not taking his job seriously enough, and that's not helping.
No, that doesn't help.
Jaguars at Ravens. The Ravens did what they were supposed to do against Jacksonville, so I don't have much to say about that.
Yeah, me neither. That was pretty much expected.
2008 Lions and 2017 Browns popped the champagne. The Jets have won a game, my friend. A week after I finally jumped ship and said, okay, this team's finally going 0-16. They beat not only any other NFL team like the Jaguars, they beat the Los Angeles Rams, who were leading the NFC West at the time. And even better, the Jets, with the win, are now no longer in the driver's seat for the number 1 overall pick, thus possibly losing the rights to Trevor Lawrence.
It's incredible. Even when the Jets win, they lose. I didn't think it was possible. I definitely did not think it was possible against the Rams, but they did it. They came back and won, and they ruined their shot at Trevor Lawrence. So I don't know really what they won by winning a meaningless game in December. But, I guess for the players, a lot of, ex-players like Pat McAfee and stuff said that was a good win for the players. It is completely demoralizing to win 16 games. Lose 16 games. So maybe it's good for the players, but for the franchise, that's awful. I mean, I don't even know what you do with the second pick. Maybe you go one of the other quarterbacks. Maybe you finish your offensive line with Penny Sewell. I'm not exactly sure what you do if you're the Jets.
Do you hope that Justin Fields breaks the trend of the Ohio State quarterback?
I don't know, man. I forget what episode we looked back at that, or I looked back at that, but that was scary, man. They have had no quarterbacks, and for real, every single quarterback that came out of there
Braxton
has been
Miller,
god-awful at the NFL level.
Braxton Miller, JT Barrett, Cardale Jones,
Terrell Pryor,
and Dwayne Haskins.
Oh yeah, Dwayne Haskins.
Well, I thought he was. He's a toolsy guy. I think that his issues in the NFL have more to do with his head, but he's still not playing well. But yeah, I mean, man, I'm really frustrated that I held on with this Jets team for so long, believing that they would eventually just stumble into a win. And of course, it's when you least expected that it finally happens. I had been on this the whole year, saying that they were still going to find a way to win a game, and sure enough, they did. I just didn't think it was going to be at this point. I thought after the way they looked lifeless the week before, it finally seemed like they had mentally checked out. That's why I decided to jump ship, and yet here they are, victorious for the first time, and yet still big losers in the end.
Yeah. Did anyone check on Hell? It's like Hell frozen over. I feel like that's happened. I felt like the Jets' first win would happen when Hell froze. So I don't know if anyone's checked on.
Has anyone checked on Trevor Lawrence? Is he happy or sad?
I don't know, man. I mean, you get scrutinized a lot less in Jacksonville, but I don't know. Jacksonville's just as sad as its team as the.
It's sad for a different reason. You might go into witness protection there, but you're in Florida.
True. True.
Plus, the expectations aren't as high when you're in Jacksonville as opposed to New York.
Exactly. New York media is awful. Really, really bad.
Double-edged sword indeed. A pretty good game between the Eagles and Cardinals that saw Kyler Murray outduel Jalen Hurts to the tune of 33-26. I thought that was a good game.
Yeah, that was a fun game to watch. Jalen Hurts looks actually pretty solid. Looks like he could possibly step in and be the starter for Philadelphia going forward into next season.
Despite the fact that the Chiefs had the ball for 41 minutes in this game, they only won by 3 points. Drew Brees had a horrible game. The Chiefs keep winning, though. At 13-1, they are I believe their magic number is 1 for the home field advantage.
Yep. It's almost impossible to lose it now. With Pittsburgh now losing 3 in a row, it's really tough for Buffalo to get it as well at this point. There's like a point, as they were talking about it on NFL Live or something, there's a 0-1 chance that Bills get the 1 seed still. But it's obviously not very likely. They need a bunch of strength of victory tiebreakers, and they need Kansas City to lose out, and they need to win out, and other things.
And last but not least, the Browns beat the Giants 20-6. Not a lot to say. The Browns, though, you know what? I'll give them credit. A game after a heartbreaking loss to the Ravens the previous week. This is, in years past, the Browns lose that following game.
Yeah, they bounced back pretty good. I thought they did well.
All right, then. That wraps up our slate of NFL games for Week 15. Ready to move on to Week 16, then?
Yep. Let's head to it.
All right, then. We'll wrap up this episode of the podcast, then. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. We'll be back momentarily here to start recording Season 5, Episode 39. And feel free to check us out on YouTube and SoundCloud under the name Stronger Than Steel podcast. As always, thank you for listening to us, and have a great night. And we hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a very happy holidays.
Bye. Happy holidays.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.